This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good afternoon to all. How are you? I think everyone is in safe conditions. Okay, today we will discuss the starting 3 units
Sir,
of
sorry
DSP.
for the inconvenience. Sir,
Chapandi.
మీ అదే టీవీ వాయిస్ అనుకుంటా సార్, న్యూస్ వినిపిస్తున్నాయి, రికార్డింగ్ లో కూడా వినిపిస్తుంది అనుకుంటా.
ఒక్క నిమిషం. Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
ఓకే సార్, రికార్డింగ్ లో వినిపిస్తుంది అందుకని.
అవును,
ఓకే సార్, యూ కెన్ కంటిన్యూ.
ఓకే మా digital signal processing. So we know very well about signal. So basically signal is the physical phenomena which conveys some information that may be in any pattern, and it is simply function of one or more independent variables, and generally that independent variable may be time, distance, humidity, whatever it is, temperature, or maybe the function of more than one also. So when it is function of single independent variable, then you can say that as one dimensional signal. And once if say one dimensional signal, on x-axis we will consider time, and on y-axis we will consider the corresponding signal amplitude, that variation of the information. So based on the amplitude variation and time nature, we can classify the signals into two types: continuous time signal and discrete time signal. And again, based on the amplitude within the time versions, we have the two subdivisions. For example, if you say continuous time signal, and within that if the amplitude is continuous, we can say that as analog signal, and if it is discrete, then you can say continuous time discrete amplitude signal. Similarly, for the discrete time signal also, if you say amplitude is continuous means here that can take any value, fraction of values, and discrete time means that can take any discrete set of values. Discrete set of values means not integers. Remember, 1.1 also said to be one number. That means here discrete set of values only. If you say continuous value 1 to 3, you can take 1 to 3 any fractional values, 1.0001 or 1.0002, like that. And discrete means we have to say exactly that number, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, like that. So if that amplitude is discrete in the discrete time signal, then we can call that as the digital signal. And those digital signal may have the set of values in a different way. If you say only two discrete levels, then you can call that as a binary and digital, pure digital form. And if you have the more than two amplitude levels, then you can say that as a multi-level digital signal. So discrete time signal means continuous time is discrete, and digital signal means both the corresponding amplitude and time both are discrete in nature. So digital signal, and that signal processing we need to know. So DSP, digital signal processing, and that digital signal processing block diagram in unit 1, first we need to know that introduction, and after that we will go one by one. So here within this revision we have to discuss the basic block diagram of digital signal processor, and what are the comparisons between DSP and ASP, analog signal processing, and what are the applications. After that we will go for the discrete time signal and its classifications, and discrete time systems and its classifications. So basically whatever the signal that is analog in nature, so that continuous time signal has to be converted into the digital signal, and then only we can process the digital signal. That's why the basic first block in the DSP block diagram is A to D converter, which will convert analog signal into digital signal. Then that digital signal will be processed through the DSP processor, and that DSP processor output is a digital signal, and that digital signal again we need to convert into D2A converter if we need the application in the analog form, or we can directly use the digital form if that application in the digital form. Okay, so the basic elements of digital signal processing system: A to D converter, DSP processor, and D to A converter. And A to D converter means there are sub blocks within that, and similarly D to A converter. And there are the more number of methods also for the conversion, and we need to select the best one, and we need to select D to A converter and corresponding DSP processor. Okay, here within this revision, I will go directly to the notes. Okay, so these are the classifications: continuous time signal and discrete time signal. What is it digital and what is analog? And here basic elements of DSP system. So most of the signals encountered in science and engineering are analog in nature. Those need to convert into the digital form, and by the that may be filter or frequency analyzer or frequency multiplier, whatever, based on our purpose of changing the characteristics we can take. And here that digital signal is processing through the processor. After that, again we need to convert that digital into the analog if necessary, otherwise you can leave it there. And here the digital signal processing is mostly preferred than analog signal processing because of these advantages: flexibility, accuracy, easy storage, mathematical processing, low cost, repeatability, adaptability, universal compatibility, size, and reliability. Flexibility means a more convenient way. Accuracy means the result will be more accurate than analog. And there is the facility of storage with the digital signal processing. And the mathematical processing is so simple than the complex processing of analog. And it is always low cost compared to the analog. And we can repeat the same processing, repeatability, whereas the analog systems, whatever those cannot be repeatable. And adaptability, we can adapt to the any type of application. And universal compatibility, why? Because most of the digital signal processings have the interface phenomena, and there is the universal compatibility, computers, etc. And the size compared to analog systems are always low, and it is more reliable, faithful. Okay, so these are the advantages of digital signal processing compared to the analog signal processing. Okay, and come to the disadvantages. So actually the basic block is to convert analog into digital. If that analog signal is wider bandwidth signal, then we require high speed A to D converters, which are practically not easy. So for the high or wider bandwidth analog signals, we cannot go for the DSP systems. Okay, and not only that, certain times for the small applications where the analog signal will process with the less cost, certain those applications, that means small application, the digital signal processing is expensive. So these are the two only drawbacks of the DSP compared to analog systems. Wider bandwidth analog signals requires high speed A to D converter. Because of that, we cannot process through the digital systems. And the second one, for small applications, the digital systems are sometimes expensive. So we need to select which one, whether we go for the cost complexity or performance. Accordingly, we have to select. So these are the drawbacks. Okay, all these are applications, and entire material is already given to you. So that's why I'm scrolling directly. And applications of DSP, where these DSP systems are widely used. And these are the applications. See, advantages means those are the features, and applications means where we are using that DSP system. Those are the application or application areas, we can say: speech processing, image processing, radar signal processing, digital communication, spectrum analysis, transmission line, sonar signal processing, optical fiber communication, etc., etc. All these are the application areas. Okay, so here the signal processing is necessary in order to manipulate, or in order to get the desired characteristics from the given input. Okay, so here the processing means it takes certain block that will take certain operations to convert that given signal into the desired or required another form. Okay, so here basically there are the analog signal processing systems and digital signal processing systems. So whatever that ASP or DSP, that will take the corresponding nature input and that will give the corresponding nature output. For example, ASP means that will take analog input and will produce analog output, and that output may be the different than analog input according to the processing performed in the ASP. Okay, similarly digital signal processing means that will take both input and output in the digital form. That's why here the basic block of a DSP system is A to D converter. Why? Because here the input is digital and the output of DSP is also digital, but in nature the signal, whatever the input, is available in analog form. That's why we need to convert analog to digital, and then we have to process through the DSP processor. Why? Because it is more advantageable compared to ASP, and then the whatever the output, the digital output, that can directly you can utilize for the application, or certain times again you need to convert the digital into analog form for the applications. Okay, so here first we need to know discrete time signal and corresponding classifications. So earlier we said discrete time signal means that time x-axis independent variable is discrete in nature. And remember here that time variable is always an integer, whereas in the continuous time signal that variable is continuous in nature. Remember, continuous means that can take any fractional value between the two numbers. For example, 1, 2 means in between 1 to 2 we can take infinite set of values for the continuous set. Discrete set means we need to take only that point. That's why here the time index is always an integer. That's why here n is always indicated by either 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on up to infinite. Similarly for the negative values also, minus infinity to 0. Okay, so n must be integer. So that is the one of the example, x of n, and here n is the time index variable, and at n equal to 0 x of n amplitude 1.4, at n equal to 1 we have the x of n value 2. So like that, here we've taken one example, and all those are nothing but the sample values of the corresponding analog signal. So whatever the sample values we collect, those sample values are indicated in the discrete time signal. Okay, so corresponding sample, and we can represent that discrete time signal in any way: graphical form, functional form, tabular form, or sequence form. Graphical form means just now we seen in one example, on x-axis we have to take that time index variable n, and at exactly n value, at that value whatever the sample amplitude we have to represent on the y-axis. And functional representation means for the corresponding n, what is the value of x of n, those things are represented in the functional form, or you can say mathematical form. Tabular representation means at specified n value, what is the x of n value is specified in the tabular column. And sequence representation, within this we need to take one arrow mark to represent n equal to 0 sample. If that arrow mark is not represented in the sequence, the starting sample itself is for the n equal to 0. Okay, so whatever the sequence form of discrete signal will take one arrow mark under n equal to 0 sample value, and from that arrow mark whatever the right side values are for the n equal to 1, 2, 3 and so on, and from that arrow mark on left side those sample values representing n equal to -1, n equal to -2, n equal to -3 and so on. Okay, so here remember that n, whenever that arrow mark is not represented in the sequence form, the starting sample itself is representing n equal to 0 sample value. Okay, so this is the sequence representation. So arrow symbol must represent n equal to 0 sample value. Left side are negative sample values and right side values are the positive sample values. Okay, so these are the different forms to represent the discrete signal. And classification of discrete time signals. So see, based on the independent variable we classified the signal into continuous time and discrete time, and again those discrete time or continuous time, according to its properties we can classify into different forms. So based on the properties, we have the classification of discrete time signals, even and odd signal, periodic and non-periodic signal, energy and power signal, deterministic and non-deterministic signal, causal and non-causal signal, stable and non-stable signal, etc. We can have the different forms. Okay, so majorly we will discuss these 4 classifications for the discrete time signals, even and odd, and periodic and non-periodic, energy and power signals, deterministic and non-deterministic signals. So even and odd signal means whenever we have the symmetry, we can call that as even signal, and whenever you have the anti-symmetry, we can call that as odd signal. So even or symmetry, odd or anti-symmetry, and that signal is said to be symmetry or even whenever it possesses the condition x of minus n equal to x of n. See, in the signal representation, definitely whatever the parenthesis we are using, that is not exact way. Why? Because here the time index n is integer in form. That's why in the discrete representation we need to take the square bracket for the time index. But for our convenience, we are writing the parenthesis like a continuous time signal. But exactly we have to write the discrete signal x square bracket, within bracket we have to write the time index. So here convenient form we return a parenthesis x of minus n equal to x of n for all values of n. And whenever that x of minus n is equal to minus x of n, we can call that as anti-symmetric or odd signal. So here these are the examples for even and odd signal. So exactly about origin, here we are having the symmetry. On right side, whatever the values, exactly those, and for example n equal to 2, we have the value 2. Similarly for n equal to minus 2 also we have the same value 2. So like that we have the symmetry. And odd signal, exactly at n equal to 2, whatever the value we are having 1.2 here, and that value will be in the negative form. That means exactly at n equal to minus 2 we have the value minus here plus 2 and minus 2. Okay, that is anti-symmetry about the origin. See, for the odd signal, because of this anti-symmetry, definitely at origin we need to have the value 0. Whatever the sample value at n equal to 0 is 0 for the odd signal. Okay, so for the odd signal we can take the necessary and sufficient condition. Whatever the odd signal at exactly n equal to 0, the sample value should be 0. Okay, so then only it is possible to have the odd signal. And similarly, remember, whenever n equal sample value at n equal to 0 is 0, that may or may not be odd signal, but for odd signal that value is 0. That's why we are saying necessary and sufficient condition for odd signal. Okay, and whatever the signal we can decompose into even and odd parts, and here x of n, even part is indicated by xe of n and odd part is x naught of n. And to get the even and odd components, we have the formula 1 by 2 x of n plus x of minus n, and odd parts can be by 1 by 2 of x of n minus x of minus n. Okay, so to get the even and odd components, we have some problems also we solved in the classroom. See here in the signal, we have the n equal to 0 sample value 1, n equal to 1, 1, n equal to 2, 2, sorry 1, n equal to 3, 1. Similarly for n equal to minus 1, minus 1, n equal to minus 2, minus 1, n equal to minus 3, minus 1. To get the even components of that signal, xe of n, we have to take that formula 1 by 2 x of n plus x of minus n. So to get xe of 0, even part signal at n equal to 0, we need to add x of 0 and x of minus 0 values, and then we have to divide by the 2. So here x of 0 value 1 and x of minus 0 means x of 0 value only 1. So 1 plus 1, 2, 2 by 2, which value is 1. So within the even part at 0 we are having the 1, and at n equal to 1, x of 1 value is 1, x of minus 1 value is minus 1. So by adding them we are getting the 0. So like that for n equal to 2, n equal to 3 we are having the 0, and for n equal to minus 1, n equal to minus 2 and so on we are having the value 0. Okay, so to get the even we have to take that formula 1 by 2 of x of n plus x of minus n. To get the odd signal we have to take 1 by 2 x of n minus x of minus. Okay, so this is odd part by the same thing. Similarly, another example to get the even and odd parts. And here whenever x of n is odd signal, since it is anti-symmetry, That means whatever the value at n equal to 1, that same value with opposite sign will have the at n equal to -1. So every time when you add all those sample values, we will get 0 except at x of 0. And since our signal have the value at n equal to 0 as 0, that value is also 0. So the sum of all the sample values for any odd signal is always 0. Okay, so to prove this mathematically, we have the proof. And when you say the product of even and odd signal, we get the odd signal. And the product of even and even is always even. The product of odd and odd is also even. So the combination of even and odd, that means the product of even and odd will result odd signal. And to prove that mathematically, here let us say that product as y of n, and let us consider x1 odd signal. So according to odd signal, x1 of minus n is minus x1 of n, and x2 of n is a even signal. So x2 of minus n is x2 of n. Now to prove whether that product signal y of n is even or odd, we need to find y of minus n. So y of minus n means x1 of minus n, x2 of minus n. Since x1 is odd and x2 is even, minus x1 of n into plus x2 of n. So net result minus y of n. So since y of minus n is minus y of n, which is the condition of odd signal, we can say that y of n, which is the product of two sequences, is odd signal. Okay, see here, discrete signal can also be called as a sequences. Why? Because it is always represented by the sample values. So we can interchange those terms, signal or sequence, for the discrete signal. Okay, so these are the some examples regarding to the even and odd parts and even and odd signals, and periodic and non-periodic signals. So periodic means a certain part of signal has to be, that means a certain number of samples has to be repeating from minus infinity to infinity. So those set of values must be repeatable for the periodic signal, and that repeatability that must be from minus infinity to infinity. If that repeatability will exist only for the finite duration, we cannot say that as the periodic. Is it clear? So periodic signal means that should repeat from minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay, so whenever that repeatability will satisfy, mathematically we can say whenever x of n equal to x of n plus or minus capital N, we can say that as a periodic signal. Here capital N is the positive integer. Okay, and the smallest value of that capital N value which satisfies that condition is said to be fundamental time period. Okay, and fundamental time period, whenever it is multiplied by any integer, that is also called period. So fundamental period means the smallest possible integer of capital N that satisfies the periodicity condition. Okay, and to get that fundamental period, here for the discrete time signal we have that formula n equal to 2 pi m by omega. Omega is the angular frequency and m is integer. We can select any value in order to get capital N as integer. Remember, for the continuous time signals, that fundamental period may be anyone, any rational value. But here, that fundamental time period or the period of the periodic discrete sequence must be integer. In order to take that integer, we can select any integer value for the small m. Okay, so the minimum possible value of small m, which makes capital N as the integer, we need to select. Okay, whenever that condition is not satisfied, that is x of n plus or minus capital N is not equal to x of n, we can say that as the non-periodic signal. So here x of n minus 1 power n, whether it is periodic or not, or if it is periodic, what is the fundamental period? So here x of n is minus 1 power n. That means whenever n is odd, we will get minus 1. Whenever n is even, we will get plus 1. So that is the graphical representation of the given sequence. And based on that sequence, we can say there is the repeatability of the samples. See, plus 1 minus 1, plus 1 minus 1, plus 1 minus 1. That means two sample values, plus 1 and minus 1, are repeated from minus infinity to plus infinity. That's why we can say it is periodic with two samples, n equal to 2. Okay. Similarly here, let us say the sinusoidal signal A cos omega naught n plus pi, and here the signal omega naught value is 8 pi by 7. Then n formula is 2 pi m by 7. Sorry, 2 pi m by omega naught. అంటే ఇక్కడ మనం ఫస్ట్ ఒమేగా నాట్ ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేసి దెన్ n వాల్యూ ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఆర్ అదర్వైజ్ యూ కెన్ సే n ఈక్వల్ టు 2 pi m by omega naught. So 2 pi m by omega naught value 8 pi by 7. 2 pi by 8 pi కాబట్టి 1 by 4 by 7. Then 7 by 4. 7 by 4 into m is the capital N. So here we need to select that m value, smallest possible integer, to make capital N integer. Here we are having 7 by 4. When you say m value as 4, 4 and 4 are cancelled out. We have the integer value n equal to 7. So n equal to 7 is the fundamental period. Similarly, for this cos pi n, 2 pi m by omega naught value pi, 2m, m value 1, then x of n has the periodicity with n equal to 2. Whenever omega naught is 2 for the second signal, x of n equal to cos 2n. Here we are having n equal to pi into m. So for any integer value of m, we cannot get integer for the capital N. Why? Because pi means 22 by 7. It is 22 by 7 means 3.14 something non-integer value. That's why x of n is non-periodic in this case. So here we can conclude whatever the sinusoidal signal, if it is a continuous time, that definitely periodic signal. But for the discrete form, if even it is a sinusoidal, that may or may not be periodic. If it is periodic, definitely we need to have the capital N value integer. If n value is not integer, even though it is sinusoidal sequence, we cannot say that as a period. Okay, so remember that the case for the sinusoidal sequence, the sequence may or may not be periodic. If that fundamental period is possible to have the integer value, then only it is periodic, otherwise non-periodic. Okay, so some more examples to find the fundamental period. And the next classification, energy and power signals. So to classify the signal as energy or power signal or neither signal, we need to find out energy of the signal and power of the signal. And to get the energy and power, we have the formulas. So to get the energy of the sequence, we have the formula sigma n equal to minus infinity to infinity magnitude of x of n whole square. See here, magnitude means whenever the sequence x of n is complex, then we need to take the magnitude of that sequence. Is it clear? Otherwise, whenever it is real, directly we will get. Okay, for example, if you say x of n as a plus something j something, they a plus jb form, let us say, then here we have to write square root of a square plus b square value for the x of n magnitude. Okay, why? Because complex means we need to take only magnitude. Okay, and similarly to get the power, we have the formula limit 1 by 2n plus 1 summation n equal to minus n to n magnitude of x of n whole square as n tends to infinity. Again here also the same magnitude of x of n. Whenever complex, we cannot square it. Real value means we can square or we can say the magnitude square. Okay, and see here within this power, n is taken from minus n to n within the summation. We can also write n value from minus n by 2 to n by 2, and since n value is integer, certain times n by 2 may not be integer. Because of that, we have to prefer to take the power formula for the summation n equal to minus n to capital. Yes? Who is that? Anybody wants to ask the question? Madam Sujita garu? Hello?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. చెప్పండి.
ఎవరో మాట్లాడడానికి ట్రై చేస్తున్నారు.
మైక్స్ అన్ని మ్యూట్ లోనే ఉన్నాయి సార్ అలాగే.
అవునా? ఓకే.
వైఎస్ జగన్ అంట సార్ ఎవరు?
సరే.
వీళ్ళ రోల్ నెంబర్స్ తో ఆన్ అవ్వలేదు. ఓకే సార్, కంటిన్యూ.
Okay, based on these formulas, we can find energy and power of the signals. Whenever that energy is finite, then definitely the power is 0. Then we can call that as the energy signal. And whenever the power is finite, then we can call that as the power signal. Okay, so whenever energy is finite, then its average power must be 0. Then we can say the signal is energy signal. Whenever the power is finite, then we can call that signal as power signal. Whenever both are not finite, that means whenever energy is infinite and power is infinite, then we can call that as neither energy nor power signal. Okay, so these are the formulas to get the energy and power, and based on the energy and power values, whether they are finite or infinite, there is the chance to have the both values as infinite, but there is no chance to have the both as the finite. Remember, so whenever they both have the infinite values, then you can say neither energy nor power signal. Okay, so these are some examples to find energy and to classify whether the signal is energy or power signal. Average power of x of n equal to u of n. So to get the power, formula 1 by 2n plus 1 sigma n equal to minus n to n magnitude of x of n square. We know the magnitude of u of n value is 1, and that u of n value is 1 only for n greater than or equal to 0. That's why for n equal to 0 to n only we have the 1 square, 1 value, and summation of n plus 1 values, n plus 1. And on simplifying and substituting n equal to infinity, we have the 1 by 2. So average power is finite, 1 by 2 watts. And next classification, deterministic and non-deterministic signals, or you can say deterministic and random signals. So whenever the signal nature can be predictable, that means whatever its occurrence, it can predictable, then you can say that as a deterministic signal. And whenever the signal is deterministic, we can represent in the mathematical form. See here, whatever the signal, if it is represented in the mathematical form, definitely we can say that is the deterministic signal. So there is the possibility to represent mathematically. Yes, anyone? Okay. If that signal nature cannot be predictable, then you can call that as the random signal or non-deterministic signal. Okay. And like continuous time signal, for the discrete time sequences also, there are the standard signals, exponential. That is the form c into alpha power n. And based on the alpha, we have the decaying exponential, growing exponential, alternating forms. And similarly, sinusoidal signal, just now we said sinusoidal signal may or may not be periodic for the discrete. Okay. And one more here, that omega naught, basically angular frequency is expressed in the radians per second. But here the time index n is integer, which is dimensionless, whereas the continuous time signal, that index t value has the units seconds. But here the time index n is dimensionless. Because of that, both angular frequency and phase have the same units, radians. Okay. So for the discrete sequence, angular frequency units are radians only, not radians per second. Okay. And unit step sequence, x u of n equal to 1 for n greater than or equal to 0, 0 for n less than 0. Remember, in this case also, unit step signal in the continuous form, 1 for n greater than 0. Exactly at n equal to 0, there is the discontinuity, undefined value for the continuous time. But for the discrete sequence, the value will be 1 for n greater than or equal to 0. Okay. So see the definition. For the u of t, its value 1 for t greater than 0, not greater than or equal to. Whereas in the discrete time, u of n value will be 1 for n greater than or equal to 0. Okay. And similarly, impulse sequence, 1 at n equal to 0, otherwise it is 0. And we can also call that impulse sequence as a sample sequence also. And certain properties of impulse sequence, when you take the product x of 0, and the shifting property x of n into delta of n minus n naught value is x of n naught. Why? Because that impulse will exist only at n equal to n naught, when you take that product, whatever the sequence at n equal to n naught value will only be the result. Even though x of n is having certain finite value, except n equal to n naught, that impulse sequence value 0. So the product of 0 into finite value is always 0. So that's why here the time shifting property and relation between impulse and step delta of n equal to u of n minus u of n minus 1. We can prove those mathematically or graphically. Similarly, ramp sequence also. So there is nothing difference in continuous and discrete. And just you have to remember, unit step sequence has the certain difference, and sinusoidal sequence also has the difference. Why? Because there the sinusoidal signal is always periodic, but here may or may not. And there omega naught is expressed in radians per second, and here that omega naught is in radians only. There the time index t is in seconds, but here the time index n is dimensionless. And for the step also we have the one difference. At n equal to 0 there is the undefined value, but here from n equal to 0 onwards we are having the sample value 1. Okay, so those are the standard sequences of discrete, exponential, sinusoidal, unit step, unit ramp, and sample sequence. Okay, and come to the discrete time systems. So here the system means which process the given input in order to get the desired output. That's why here whatever the given input is also called excitation, and whatever the desired output is the corresponding response for the input after processing by the system. So the system is certain operations performed on the input in order to get the desired response. Okay, so that system may be interconnection of elements or maybe interconnection of subsystems also. So we can define the system, which is nothing but interconnection of elements or blocks which produce the required response in accordance with the given input or given excitation sequence. Okay, so here the discrete time system means the input and output both are in discrete nature, and that discrete time system we can represent either symbolical form or mathematical form or black diagramic form. So black diagramic form means one block. Within that block, whatever the transfer function or whatever the functions performed in that system is represented, and on left side we have the corresponding excitation, and that excitation corresponding response on the right side. And remember, discrete time system, so the input and output both are discrete in nature. And symbolically we can represent the input x of n is producing or is giving output y of n, and t is the system operator. We can represent that system operator t on the implies mark also. Mathematically we can say y of n is the response which is obtained by transforming given input x of n. So y of n is a transforming operation on x of n. Okay, so these are the symbolic and mathematical representation of the systems, and that system will possess certain properties. Based on those properties we can classify the systems into different. So here the properties means linearity, time invariance, stability, causality, etc. Accordingly, we can classify the systems into different ways. If that satisfies linearity, then you can call that as a linear system, otherwise non-linear. If it satisfies time invariance, we can call that as time invariant system, or otherwise a time variant. If it is a causal, then you can say that as causal system or a non-causal system. So like that, based on the properties of the system, we can classify into systems into different ways. So now let us see the properties. Linearity means which satisfies the both superposition and homogeneity. Homogeneity means scale, addition and scaling properties. And time invariance means when you have the certain delay in the input, that same delay has to obtain in the output. Then only we can say it is a time invariant. Otherwise, it is time variant. So whatever the time shift of input must cause the corresponding shift in output. Okay, and causality means whenever the output depends only on present and or past values, then only you can say it is causal. If it depends future values on future value, definitely we can say that as a non-causal.
హలో
ఓకే మ్యామ్.
ఓకే సార్
మా బుడ్డోడు కూడా క్లాస్ వింటున్నాడు పక్కన కూర్చొని, అప్పుడప్పుడు డిస్టర్బ్ చేస్తున్నాడు క్వశ్చన్స్.
ఓకే సార్ ఇట్స్ ఓకే
Okay, so that is causality. And memory and memory less, that means whenever the output is depending only on the present values, then you can say the system is without memory. Whenever it depends on past values or future values, then you can say the system is with memory. And whenever the system is with memory, we can call that as a dynamic system. Whenever the system is without memory, we can call that as a static system. So here, based on the memory, we can classify the system into static and dynamic. And similarly, stable means whenever the bounded input will produce the corresponding bounded output. That means the output cannot go unreasonably larger values, then you can say that system as stable. Otherwise, not stable. We can simply call that as a Bibo stability. Hello? Bibo stability, bounded input and bounded output stability. That means for the input, we have the bounded value and the corresponding output must be bounded. So these are the properties of the system. 5 properties: linearity, time invariance, causality, memory, stability. Accordingly, we can classify the systems into linear, non-linear systems, time variant, time invariant systems, causal, non-causal systems, stable, unstable systems, static, dynamic systems. Okay, so mostly we have to concentrate on the LSI, linear shift invariant systems. So specifically, we are going to discuss LSI systems, linear shift invariant systems. That means here, whatever the system, whenever it satisfies both the properties of linearity and shift invariance, we can call that as a LSI system. That means it satisfies both the properties linearity and shift invariance. Okay, and that shift invariant systems can be specified in the form of impulse response or in the form of LCCD, or you can say in the form of transfer function also. Okay, and remember, impulse response or transfer function means both are time and frequency domain versions. Impulse response frequency domain version is the transfer function for the LSA systems. Okay, so here LSA systems or LTA systems can be specified in terms of impulse response or in terms of LCCD, linear constant coefficient difference equation. Okay, and here impulse response means the response of the system whenever input is impulse. So x of n is delta of n, and the corresponding response y of n is h of n, impulse response. And we can prove that also. LTA, for LTA systems, we can get the output for any input just by the convolution sum. And for that one, this is the proof. So for the linear time invariant systems, the response y of n is convolution of input and the impulse response. X of n, asterisk symbol is representing convolution sum h of n. And similarly, unit step response means the response of the system whenever the input is unit step sequence. And here also we can classify the properties of LTA system based on certain conditions. And LTA system is said to be causal whenever the corresponding impulse response is causal. Impulse response sequence causal means that value must be 0 for n less than 0. Okay, so causality means whenever the impulse response is causal, then you can call that system as LTA. Remember, basic system causality means the output is function of only present and or past values, not on future. And that same implies for the LTA systems. Whenever impulse response is causal, then it obeys that condition. So here specifically for LTI, we have to say the causality based on impulse response. Why? Because just now we said the complete behavior of LTA system is explained by either impulse response or LCTD. Okay, so here whenever impulse is causal, then you can say that's as causal, and whenever impulse response is absolute summable, then you can call that as stable. And whenever impulse response is 0 at exactly non-zero values of n, that means it will exist only at n equal to 0, then you can call that as static, otherwise dynamic. Okay, so based on impulse response only we can decide whether it is causal, whether it is stable, or whether it is static or other. Okay, so impulse response causal means system is causal. Impulse response is absolute summable, then you can say that as stable. If impulse response will exist only at n equal to 0, we can call that as static, otherwise dynamic. So static system will take the impulse response of the form k into delta of L. Okay, so these are the properties of LDA, and to get the stable or unstable, causal or non-causal, these are some examples how to find based on those, whether h of n is a causal or absolute summable or static. Based on that we can decide the system properties. Okay, and now LCCDE general form. So LDA systems can be described in the impulse response. Based on impulse response we can find the nature of the LDA. Similarly, to get the behavior of the system from the LCCDE, we need to know the general form of LCCDE. So here general form, AK is the coefficient, y of n minus k, y of n is the output, summation k value 0 to capital N, and see here that capital N is called order of the system. So whatever the highest delay of the output is nothing but called order. And on right side r equal to 0 to m, br is the coefficient x of n minus r, and here m is the highest delay dependent elements of the input. And here AK is called feedback coefficient, BR is called feed forward coefficient. Okay, so general form, two coefficients AK and here BK. Y of n is the output, X of n is the input, and here capital N is called order of the system, and AK is called feedback coefficient, and BR is called feed forward coefficient. Okay, and to get the solution of this LCCDE, we have to find out homogeneous solution and particular solution. That means whatever the response from the LCCDE is the sum of homogeneous part and particular solution part. We can also call homogeneous as natural or complementary solution, and particular solution is also known as a forced response. And here to get the homogeneous solution we need to take x of n, input value 0, and to get the particular solution we have to substitute particular format according to the input. Okay, so to get the homogeneous solution we need to consider x of n value 0, and then we have to replace y of n by lambda power n. And after taking x of n 0, see within this LCCDE general form, once x of n is 0, the right side term will be 0. So the remaining sigma k equal to 0 to n, AK y of n minus k 0, and we are how to replace y of n by lambda power n, that is the lambda power n minus k. And I'm simplifying whatever the equation we are getting, that is called the characteristic polynomial. Why it is means whatever the roots of the characteristic polynomial will decide the characteristics of the system. That's why we are calling that as the characteristic equation of the system. And those roots may be repeatable roots or maybe different roots. Accordingly, we can write the solution YH of n. If they are real and distinct, we can write the form C1 lambda 1 power n, C2 lambda 2 power n, and so on. Here lambda 1, lambda 2, and lambda n all are n roots of the characteristic equation, and C1, C2, Cn are the coefficients we need to find out according to the given initial conditions. If they are repeated, then according to that repeated root of the order m, we have to write C1, C2n, C3 n square, Cm n power m minus 1. See here, C1 lambda 1 power n, C2 n lambda 1 power n, C3 n square lambda 1 power n, and so on. See here, lambda 1 is the repeated root of the order m. That's why the total m coefficients we have to find out. C1, C2n, C3 n square, Cm n power m minus 1. Here total m coefficient, and remaining are the distinct roots. That's why Cm plus 1, lambda m plus 1 power n, and so on. Okay, and particular solution we need to take the particular form according to the input. If it is constant, yp of n is also constant, another constant. A into m power n, k into m power n, a into n power m, k naught n power m plus k1 n power m minus 1 plus and so on k. An a power n into n power m అయితే a power n into k naught n power m plus k1 n power m minus 1 plus and so on. And whether it is cosine or sine, we can write the form k1 cos omega naught n plus k2 sin omega naught n. Okay. So according to that, we have to find out homogeneous and particular solution. And one more here not mentioned. Once the input is impulse sequence delta of n, the particular solution is zero. Whenever input is okay, whenever input is impulse sequence, the particular solution is 0. And these are the different forms to get the particular solution. And we need to remember one more in the homogeneous part also. Whenever we have the LCCD general form capital N and capital M, the delay dependent of output capital N and highest delay for the input capital M. Whenever capital N is equal to capital M, within the homogeneous solution part, we need to add one delta of n. We have one example for that. I think here is not. So here the equation y of n plus a1 y of n minus 1 equal to x of n. To get the homogeneous, we need to take x of n 0. And we have to replace y of n equal to lambda power n. And after finding the roots, here lambda is only minus a1. So the solution c1 minus a1 power n. And according to the initial conditions, we can find c1 value. Another one to find the homogeneous solution. One particular solution. And see here, x of n is 2 power n. Then we have to find the response. That means both homogeneous and particular solution. See, to get the total response, what you have performed the initial conditions values for the evaluation of C1 and C2 for the homogeneous part is different for the finding total response. That means for the homogeneous solution only, we need to get C1 and C2 by the direct equation. But for the final response, we need to add the particular solution. Then we have to substitute the conditions. Is it clear? Complete response find out chese time lo homogeneous solution coefficients evaluation anedi. Only homogeneous solution find out chese time lo coefficient evaluation anedi chinna difference. Akkada input 0 తీసేసుకొని డైరెక్ట్ గా C1 C2 ని ఎవాల్యుయేట్ చేస్తాం. బట్ ఫైనల్ కంప్లీట్ రెస్పాన్స్ కావాలి అనుకున్నప్పుడు మాత్రం don't evaluate C1 and C2 in the previous way. Here we need to take particular solution first, and after adding the particular solution only, we need to find C1 and C2 of the homogeneous solution. Okay, so here y of n, to get the homogeneous solution, y of n is replaced by lambda power n. We got two roots, 1 by 3 and 1 by n. Two are distinct roots, so C1 C2, and here C1 and C2 are not evaluating directly without particular solution for this. X of n is 2 power n u of n. Because of that, the particular solution will take the form k into 2 power n u of n. And on substituting that yp of n in the LCCD, we need to assume the n value. That n value doesn't make any one of the term as 0. So here for n equal to 2, no one will vanish. So for n equal to 2, we have the k value 8 by 5. And particular solution, so k value 8 by 5, 2 power n u of n. Now take this particular solution in the homogeneous part. That means the complete response y of n, yh of n plus yp of n. And now using this equation and the given LCCD equation, we have to evaluate C1 and C2. Okay. So to get the complete response, don't find the coefficients of the homogeneous solution directly. After adding with a particular solution, then only we have to find out the coefficients. Okay. So after that, we have the C1 and C2, and then the final solution y of n. Okay. So this is the way to get the LCCD solution directly. And there is the indirect method also to get the solution, that is by jet transform. So using jet transform, indirectly you can get the complete solution. Okay. So these are some examples we saw. And if you use Z transform, we have to use these formulas: one-sided Z transform time shifting properties, x of n minus k z power minus k. That means a one-sided Z transform time shifting properties. And using these, we can get y of n minus 1 Z transform, y of n minus 2, y of n plus 1, whatever it is. And after that, by taking the inverse Z transform, we can get directly the response. See, direct method means we have to find homogeneous solution and particular solution. Indirect method means we can use the Z transform. Okay. And then frequency domain representation means whatever the system output. For that one, to get the frequency domain form, we need to get DTFT, discrete time Fourier transform. So whenever x of n is e power j omega n, then you will get whatever the response, which is called frequency response, that is indicated by h of e power j omega. That frequency response is generally complex, so it will take amplitude and phase form. So frequency response means a combination of both magnitude and phase, as we have for the continuous time systems. And impulse response is the inverse DTFT of the frequency response, that is given by 1 by 2 pi integral minus pi to pi h of e power j omega n d omega. So whatever the sequence x of n, to get the frequency domain representation, we have to take discrete time Fourier transform. That is the formula: sigma n equal to minus infinity to infinity x of n e power minus j omega n. And to get the inverse DTFT, that means to get the time domain sequence, x of n is 1 by 2 pi integral minus pi to pi x of e power j omega n d omega. See here, even though we are taking the frequency domain representation of the discrete sequence, we are using the frequency variable omega, which is continuous. That is the drawback of DTFT in the frequency domain form. To eliminate that only, we have to go for the DFT and so on. We have to discuss in the unit 2. Okay. So that is the frequency response. That means the DTFT of the impulse response of LTI system is nothing but called frequency response. We can also call that as the transfer function. So once you know impulse, then you can find frequency response by the DTFT. Then you can draw the magnitude plot and phase response plot also. These are some examples we solved in the class. Okay. So this is the situation we said earlier. Capital N equal to capital M. That means output delay element and input delay element, capital N and capital M, both are equal. In this case, the homogeneous solution must be added with the term delta of n. So here, even though there is one rule, YH of n is C1 plus delta of n into some coefficient here. Okay. And remaining procedure as usual. So by solving all these, we can get some practical knowledge and DTFT. Already we solved in the classroom. Just we have to know the formula and review of the transforms. So basically, like Laplace transform for the discrete sequence, we have the Z transform. And Z transform means again two-sided Z transform, one-sided Z transform. And to solve the LCCD, we need to use one-sided Z transform. That means unilateral Z transform. And here Z is the complex variable, and that will take R into e power j omega. R is the magnitude and omega is the frequency variable. So the DTFT and Z transform both are same once if you say the magnitude of Z value as 1, R equal to 1. So here that is the relation x of Z whenever Z equal to e power j omega only. That means R value 1, then whatever the equation, that is equivalent to DTFT. So whenever the sequence x of n is absolute summable, then only there is the possibility of DTFT. Similarly, the Z transform of x of n is possible whenever the sequence x of n into r power minus n is absolute summable. So the existence of Z transform is depending on R value, the magnitude of Z. So based on that, we can define the different properties of ROC also. So all those land in the signals and systems, and again we have to know because in our unit 1 there is the review of Z transform also, ROC properties around 8. And using Z transform, we can get the system function and impulse response. Using Z transform, we can solve the LCCDE. Using Z transform, directly you can find whether it is stable or causal or none. Whether
హలో
it is causal or not based on ROC. Hello.
ఏం లేదు సార్, ఇందాక వాయిస్ వినిపించలేదు అందుకని.
Okay. So based on ROC, we can say the system whether it is causal or non-causal. So whatever the ROC, if it is specified outside the circle, then you can say that is a causal. And whenever the system whenever the system is stable, whatever the ROC must be inside the unit circle. So based on the ROC, we can identify whether it is stable or not, whether it is causal or not. If the ROC is outside the circle, we can say that is causal. If the ROC is inside the unit circle, we can say that is stable. So whenever both the conditions are satisfied, you can say that is causal and stable. Okay. So these are the certain standard signal jet transforms. And once you know these formulas, then it is easy to find the solution of LCCDE. A power n u of n n. So to get the solution, see here how to get the impulse response. X of n, y of n are given. So based on that, you can get x of z and y of z. By taking the ratio, you can get the system function h of z. After taking inverse z transform, then we can get the impulse response. X of z, y of z, and h of z is the ratio of output to the input. Then inverse z transform is the h of. So these are certain examples to find the whether system is stable or causal. I think it is better to ask by scrolling you. Okay. So using Z transform to find the solution of LCCDE, directly first we have to apply the Z transform. After that, we have to get y of z, and then by taking inverse Z transform for that y of z, you can get the response. No need to find separately the homogeneous solution and a particular solution. The examples problems అన్ని వన్ బై వన్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయడానికి మనకు టైం సరిపోదు. సో బెటర్ మీరు ఒకసారి ఉన్న మెటీరియల్ ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే ఆ డౌట్స్ పార్ట్ వరకు అడిగితే బెటర్. Okay. So this is about the unit 1 only. So actually we have to cover 3 units, but only unit 1 is covered, and in the next class we will see the remaining units. Students, I think it is a convenient way for you, but కొంతవరకు అయితే ఒకసారి రివిజన్ గా ఒకసారి టచ్ అప్ చేసినట్టుగా అనిపిస్తుందని మొత్తం ఈ స్క్రోల్ చేసాము. You can ask any doubts in this. Yes, any student? ఏమా యూనిట్ 1 కి సంబంధించినంత వరకు ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే అడగొచ్చు. సిఆర్, సుజిత మేడం.
ఎస్ సార్. సార్ చెప్పండి.
టోటల్ ఎంతమంది ఉన్నారండి?
44 members సార్.
Anyone? Roll number 67 ఉన్నారా?
No sir.
Roll number A6. Roll number B8.
A6 ఉన్నారు, B8 ఉన్నారు. Students, you can unmute your mics and ask your questions.
Okay. B8.
Yes, sir.
Any doubt?
No, sir.
Is
Unit
it
1
convenient?
doubts ఏం లేదు సార్. థర్డ్ యూనిట్ అను ఫోర్త్ యూనిట్ అంటే అవి FIT అను అవి రివైజ్ చేస్తే బాగుంటుంది అనిపించింది సార్. అంటే ఫస్ట్ యూనిట్ అంతా క్లియర్ గానే ఉంది.
D80.
ఎస్ సార్.
D80 or FIT? Decimation and time, decimation and frequency. అలాగా?
ఎస్ సార్.
D8 F50, DAF F50. Unit 2.
ఎస్ సార్.
CR రాలేదా? 63 67 అమ్మాయి. Yes, lateral entry 25. Lateral entry 25. Okay. So in the next session, we will see the remaining units as early as possible. Shall we close the session? Oh, sorry. Hello. We have the time
Yes,
up to
sir.
3:30, right?
Yes sir.
Okay. We will go to the unit 2.
Okay sir.
D80 F50 is mostly. So like Fourier series for the discrete sequence, we have the DFX. And for the to get the frequency domain representation for the discrete time sequence, we have to use DTFT, discrete time Fourier transform. But within the DTFT, whatever the frequency variable omega, that is continuous. So in order to take the pure digital form for the frequency domain representation, we need to sample that frequency variable, and after sampling that DTFT, we get DFT, discrete Fourier transform. So remember, discrete Fourier transform is nothing but the sampled form of DTFT, and after that, whatever the frequency variable omega is converted into the another frequency variable k, and there that k is nothing but the frequency sampled index value. Okay, so I think no need to introduce all these Fourier series properties. Yes. So discrete Fourier transform is nothing but the frequency sampled form of DTFT, discrete time Fourier transform. So here instead of omega, we have the k. So x of k is the discrete Fourier transform of sequence x of n, and instead of omega we have to write 2 pi k by capital N. In the DTFT we have x of n e power minus j omega n, and now here instead of omega we have to replace 2 pi k by capital N. and that capital N is nothing but how many number of points we need to get after sampling. So sampled means we can sample that sequence into that number of points. Okay, so whatever the continuous spectrum can be divided into the certain number of sample values, and based on that N value we have the N point DFT. So here capital N is that number of sample values which are collected from the DFT. Okay, and the corresponding inverse DFT is X of N equal to 1 by N X of K e power plus j 2 pi k by N 10. And here instead of writing every time e power minus j 2 pi k by N, we can use the simplest form, Twiddle factor, and that Twiddle factor is represented by W suffix 1 minute. Okay, W suffix N, which is e power minus j 2 pi by N, which is called Twiddle factor, and it possesses certain properties. Wn power 0 value is always 1, Wn power N value is always 1, and Wn power k is equal to Wn power N plus k, which is called cyclic property. And similarly, Wn power N by 2 plus k is equal to minus Wn power k, which is called symmetry property. So using simple Twiddle factor, we can get the DFT. And because of this multiplication is possible in the matrix form, we can get the DFT and IDFT by the matrix representation also. Okay. These are the matrix forms. Small x is IDFT and capital X is the DFT. Wn are the Twiddle factor values. So to get the DFT directly by multiplying the Twiddle factor matrix and sequence sample matrix, we get. And similarly, to get the inverse DFT, just we have to take the inverse matrix of Wn and DFT capital X of N by multiplying these. See here, to get the inverse of the Twiddle factor matrix, it is not easy. That's why instead of that, we can take Wn conjugate. Why? Because here Wn Twiddle factor matrix is symmetric. We can use the Wn inverse by the 1 by N Wn conjugate. So to get the inverse DFT directly, we can use the formula 1 by N into whatever the Twiddle factor matrix used for the DFT calculation, that Twiddle factor values with the conjugate into the corresponding DFT samples. So to get the DFT and inverse DFT, mostly it is a better way to find using matrix. So some standard DFTs, delta of N has the value 1, delta of N minus N naught, e power j 2 pi by, sorry, e power minus j 2 pi by N into N naught k. All these are the formulas of the DFT for the standard sequence. And for the window functions, especially, there is the difference according to the that number of points. Here capital N is the general case. The same problem can be asked by taking a capital N value 2 and N value 4. That means 2 point DFT of that window function or 4 point DFT of the window function. So whether 4 point DFT is 4000. Similarly, 2 point DFT also we can find by taking N equal to 2. 2 point DFT 20. Just matrix forms. I think no doubts kabatti ikkada manam time waste cheyaddu. Just matrix representation. X of N has the 4 samples. So W 4 power 0 2 a Twiddle factor matrix rasunda. Finally DFT. Similarly, inverse DFT ki 1 by N Twiddle factor matrix as it is this one conjugate rasunda. So instead of using formula to find DFT and IDFT, directly by the matrix form, we can get the DFT and IDFT. And mostly the properties of DFT are also important. Periodicity, that means whatever X of N for the N point. So with respect to N points, that is periodic with that N point. And similarly, the DFT also, X of K is also periodic with the N. linearity property, circular symmetric properties, and here the modular operations can be specified by the graphical form. That means the circular sequences how to represent circular delay, circular advance, how to rotate in the clockwise or anti-clockwise. Symmetrical properties, and mostly asked question it is symmetrical properties of DFT. What is the nature of real part and imaginary part? And whenever x of n is real and even and real and odd, duality property, circular shifting and circular time shifting, circular frequency shifting properties. All these DFT properties are important. Okay. So DFT and IDFT formulas. And DFT is nothing but the frequency sample form of DTFT. Just we have to replace omega by 2 pi k by n. So these are the twiddle factor properties. And linearity, periodicity, time shifting, that means circular time shifting, circular frequency shifting property, time reversal property, conjugate property of DFT. DFT properties and DFS properties both are same. Just in notation there is the slight difference. Convolution properties. How to find linear convolution, circular convolution. How to find linear convolution using circular convolution. How to find circular convolution using DFT, IDFT. To find directly DFT, the computations, that means required number of additions and multiplications are more. Because of that, we have to go for the alternative way in order to speed up the process and the computations, and that is called fast Fourier transform. So here to get the fast Fourier transform, we have the two different ways, DIT and DIF, decimation in time, decimation in frequency. So actually in the direct computation, the number of complex additions used n into n minus 1 and the number of complex multiplications used n square. And using FFT, we can reduce those complex additions from n into n minus 1 to n log n base 2. And similarly, the complex multiplications n square into n by 2 into log n base 2. So here the fast Fourier transform is nothing but the decimation of the DFT calculation. So the total computation has to be split into the by parts. N point DFT has to be calculated from the n by 2 point DFTs, and n by 2 point DFTs has to be calculated from the n by 4 point DFTs. So like that, we have to continue that DFTs calculations until the 2 point DFT will come. And accordingly, we have the number of stages to calculate, and that number of stages are given by log n base 2. And that decimation, whether we take the decimation from the time sequence or from the frequency sequence, accordingly, we have the decimation in time FFT algorithm, decimation in frequency FFT algorithm. So when you say the comparison of DFT and FFT, see here. So in the direct computation of n point DFT, the complex additions required n into n minus 1, and the complex multiplications required n square. Whereas using DIF or DIT radix to FFT, that number of stages are log n base 2, and complex additions required n into small m. M is the number of stages, log n base 2. Similarly, complex multiplications required capital N into M by 2. And based on these, you can also find the percentage of saving in the multiplications and how much speed from the FFT algorithms. So see here the notations, the direct computations, complex additions are represented by capital A, complex multiplications are required by capital B. Similarly, FFT, using FFT, whatever the complex additions are represented by small a, and complex multiplications are represented by the small b. And here M is the number of stages. And now here the percentage of saving with the FFT complex additions, 1 minus small a by capital A. Small a means using DAF or DAT, whatever the additions required. Capital A means direct DFT additions. Similarly, complex multiplications, how much percentage saved is given by 1 minus small b by capital B. And how much speed by the FFT is given by complex additions, for the complex additions capital A by A, and for the complex multiplications capital B by B. So based on the number of points, we can see how much percentage we can save in the calculations and how much speed that FFT is having compared to the direct DFT calculations. So finally, we can say the number of calculations are low in FFT and the percentage of saving increase, and the speed of FFT is also increased. Now let us see how to get decimation in time radix to FFT algorithm. So step 1. So here, whatever the DFT formula, sigma n equal to 0 to n minus 1 x of n w n power nk. We need to split this n point DFT into two n by 2 point DFTs. So for that one, the first summation is divided into two summations for n values even and for n values odd. So n values even, n values odd, and n values even means we can replace n by 2n. Similarly, n value odd means we can replace n by 2n plus 1. And after that replacement, x of 2n, wn power 2nk, and in the second summation, x of 2n plus 1, wn whole power 2nk into wn power k. And here wn square can be written as w suffix n by 2. So that is written. That means n point twiddle factor is converted into n by 2 point twiddle factor, wn by 2 power nk. Similarly, in the second summation also. So now here the first summation part is nothing but n by 2 point DFT of even samples of x of n. Similarly, the second part wn power k into n by 2 point DFT of odd samples of x of n. And let us say these as I1, I2. I1 of k plus w1 n power k, I2 of k. I1 of k is the n by 2 point DFT of even samples. I2 of k is the n by 2 point DFT of odd samples. And now we have to split that n by 2 point DFTs into n by 4 point DFTs. So that's why we have to take I1 of k and I2 of k. So here I1 of k is given by that equation and I2 of k. And whatever the sequence DFT, both are periodic with the period capital N. So here I1 of k is the n by 2 point DFT, so it is periodic with period n by 2. So here we can replace that I1 of k by I1 of 4 plus k also. By when you assume n equal to 8. I2 of k can also be replaced by I2 of k plus n by 2. If you say n equal to 8, 4 plus k. So for n equal to 0 and for k equal to 0, these are the sample values calculated using that formula. So this is the first stage signal flow graph. Wn power k for half of the multiplications and for half of the multiplications 1. Based on those equations, And in the step 2, we need to split that n by 2 point DFTs into n by 4 point DFTs. So for that one, n by 2 point DFT of even samples is taken here. And then again the same process, even of that even samples, odd of that even samples, there 2n into 2, 2n plus 1 into 2. The same process. Instead of n, here we are having 2n. So x of 2n plus 1. And after simplification, we have the n by 4 point DFT, w n by 2 power k n by 4 point DFT. And if you say n equal to 8, that n by 4 point DFT is the 2 point DFT. So there ends the FFT algorithm for n equal to 8. If n equal to 16, we have to continue that same process to the one more stage. We need to write those equations according to the substituted variables. And after that, by letting those sample values, by assuming n equal to 8, we can get, so this is the second stage and the last stage. This one is the last stage. And by composing all these, so actually if you say n equal to 8, x of 0 to x of 7, so from this side, n point DFT, n by 2 point DFT, n by 4 point DFT. So here to get the n point DFT, total samples we have to take, and those samples are obtained by the n by 2 point DFT. And for this even samples, odd samples. And again for this one, even samples, odd samples. So like that, by taking x of 0, x of 4 to 2 point DFT, you will get two samples, x of 2, x of 6, x of 1, x of 5, x of 3, x of 7. Those are calculated by the 4 point DFT and then by the 8 point DFT. See here, the input side, x of 0, x of 4, x of 2, x of 6, x of 1, x of 5, x of 3, x of 7. And on the output side, x of 0 to x of 7 in the sequence form. So this time sequence is decimated here, whereas the frequency sequence is in the sequence form. That's why we are calling this as decimation in time FFT algorithm. And one more thing, see here, n equal to 8 means we can represent with the 3 bits. If you say for the n equal to 0, 0, 0, you will get 0. If you say for the 4, 1, 0, 0, when you reverse it is 0, 0, 1, x of 1. So like that, whatever the time sequence is nothing but the bit reversal order of the corresponding position. So we can also call this radix 2 FFT algorithm as bit reversal algorithm. Just those positions are obtained by taking the bit reversal. That's why we are calling bit reversal algorithm. See here. So frequency domain x of 0, the corresponding time domain is by the bit reversal order. X of 1, 0, 0, 1, the bit reversal x of 4. So that's why x of 4 for the first 2 point DFT calculation. So like that here, the time sequence is in the bit reversal order. So this is the complete flow graph for n equal to 8. The time sequence in the bit reversal order and frequency sequence is in the normal order. And 2 point, 4 point, 8 point DFT. So 2 point DFT, 4 point DFT, 8 point DFT. In every calculation, half of the lines are multiplied with the 1 and remaining half of the lines are multiplied by the -1. And half of the lines are multiplied by the 1 before the arrow marks and remaining half are the multiplied by the twiddle factor. So see here, first 2 point DFT, 1 W2 power 0, 1 W2 power 0, 1 W2 power 0, plus 1 minus 1, plus 1 minus 1. Come to the 4 point DFT, first 2 lines are multiplied with 1, next 2 lines are multiplied with -1. And first 2 lines are multiplied, pre-multiplied with 1, and next 2 lines are pre-multiplied with double W4 power 0, W4 power 1, or you can say W8 power 0, W8 square. Similarly, in the last stage, first 4 lines are multiplied with 1, and the next 4 lines are multiplied with -1. And the last 4 lines are pre-multiplied with W8 power 0, 8 power 1, 8 power 2, 8 cube. Okay. So this is the decimation in time FFT, butterfly flow diagram. And here in the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and total, how many multiplications and how many additions and how many butterflies and what are the different Twiddle factors used are mentioned in the table. So complex additions in the stage 1, 8, stage 2, 8, stage 3, 8. Total additions are 8, 8, 8, total 24. Similarly, complex multiplications, half of those are additions. That's why here 4, 4, 4, and total 16. Sorry, multiplications are reduced. Okay. And the number of butterflies, 2-point DFTs, so 4. 4-point DFTs are 2, and 8-point DFT with the butterflies 1. So total 7. Similarly, decimation in frequency FFT algorithm can also be obtained by splitting. That means by decimating frequency samples. So for that one, x of k is taken, and here whatever the range 0 to n-1 is split into the 2 parts, half 0 to n/2 - 1 and the remaining n/2 to n-1. See, for the decimation in time, we taken even and odd samples of the sequence to get the n/2 point DFT. Now here half of the samples are separated, and by simplifying that, we can get the n/2 point DFT form. And let us say here those x of 2k and similarly x of 2k plus 1. The same process again. We get n/2 point DFT. The first stage butterfly diagram. Similarly, whatever the samples, whatever the DFTs, again n/2 DFTs has to be split into n/4 and n/4. And by letting in the second summation by the another variable, we can take that single summation, and there you will get a n/4 point DFT. So like that, the process is continued with the simple equations. For every stage, we need to draw the separate butterfly diagram. These are the butterfly diagrams in the last stage, and by combining all, this is the DI. See, in the decimation in time, the time sequence is in the bit reversal order. Now in the decimation in frequency FFT algorithm, the frequency samples are in the decimation order, bit reversal order. We can call reversal two FFT algorithms. The only the difference, there is the decimation in time in the previous case. Now here the decimation in the time sequence. Sorry, in the frequency sequence. That's why here x of 0, x of 4, x of 2, x of 6 on the frequency side. The multiplications, additions, all are same. So here we can compare DIT and DIF. Time domain sequence is decimated in DIT. Whereas in the other side, frequency domain sequence is decimated. And here x of n is in the bit reversal order, and there x of k is in the bit reversal order. And the storage, computation, multiplications, both are same. And both require completely complex additions and complex multiplications, the same, n log n base 2, n/2 log n base 2. The only the difference, bit reversal order in the time sequence or bit reversal order in the frequency sequence. Okay. And one more, the multiplication also, see, in the DIT, half of the samples are pre-multiplied by the Twiddle factor values. Now here, post-multiplied with the Twiddle factors. Half of the samples are multiplied with 1 and half of the samples are multiplied with -1. In the previous case, the Twiddle factors are written prior to the flow lines. Now here, after flow lines, we have to take the Twiddle factors, W8 power 0 to W8 power 3 after flow graph diagram. Similarly, in the second stage, in this case, and positive, those Twiddle factors are just pre-multiplication and post-multiplication. Inverse FFT అయితే అవి minus అవుతాయి. So within this inverse FFT, we can use the same FFT, whatever DIT or DIF, to get the inverse DFT also. Just here with the simple changes. And these are the uses of FFT. Single FFT can be used to compute both DFT and IDFT. And using FFT algorithm, we can find the response of discrete systems. So that is the second unit. And to discuss unit 3, IIR and FIR filters. And microprocessors, that means the DSP process, we will take the another session. Yes, you can ask any doubt in the unit 2. Yes, 44 కాస్త 33 అయినట్టున్నారు కదండి.
Yes sir.
సుజిత మేడం.
Yes sir.
Okay.
32%.
Yes, anyone can raise question? LE 25. నెంబర్ కనిపిస్తుంది, మనిషి మాట్లాడలేదు మరి. ఓకే, రోల్ నెంబర్ B8. అమ్మాయి కొలేరా
సార్? ఉన్నారు సార్.
ఉన్నారు సార్ అనడానికి.
మీరు అన్నది DIT, DIF ఇవేనా
సార్? సెకండ్ అంటే బట్ సార్ అవి
లేక మీరు అడిగింది ఇవే కదా, DIT, DIF.
DIT FFT సార్. నెక్స్ట్ యూనిట్స్ క్లారిటీ లేదు, అంటే అవి చెప్పినప్పుడు నేను క్లాస్ లో లేను. అవి చెప్పినప్పుడు నేను క్లాస్ లో లేను సార్, అందుకే క్లారిటీ లేదు.
క్లారిటీ ఏమైనా వచ్చిందా?
వచ్చింది సార్.
ఓకే అమ్మా, ఇప్పుడు ఎలా ఉంది? ఓకే,
అర్థమైంది సార్.
ఎనీవన్? ఓకే, సో DIT FFT లోనేమో డైరెక్ట్ ఫార్ములా తీసుకొని ఈవెన్ శాంపుల్స్ ని ఆడ్ శాంపుల్స్ ని స్ప్లిట్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్తాం. DIF FFT లోనేమో హాఫ్ ఆఫ్ ద శాంపుల్స్ ని స్ప్లిట్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్తాం. అంటే ఎన్ పాయింట్ DFT క్యాలిక్యులేషన్ ఫార్ములా రెండింటికి డైరెక్ట్ గా తీసుకుంటాం. హాఫ్ ఆఫ్ ద శాంపుల్స్ ని సపరేట్ చేస్తే DIF FFT అల్గారిథం వస్తుంది. ఈవెన్ శాంపుల్స్ ఆడ్ శాంపుల్స్ తీసుకొని స్ప్లిట్ చేస్తే DIT FFT వస్తుంది. ఓకే, ఎనీవన్? Okay, shall we close the session?
Yes sir.
Anyone? ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే అడిగితే బెటర్.